First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, everybody, welcome back and thank you for joining me here once again on the Eternal Insiders Podcast. We are being joined today by one of the winners from an absolutely epic Eternal 82 card. The card just gone last weekend at the sold-out HBF Stadium in Perth, Western Australia. It's Freestyle MMA's own Amena Hadaya, kind enough to join us here on the show for the very first time and talk about that big-time win. Amena, thank you for joining me here for the very first time. How are things with you? How are you enjoying the win back home after that incredible performance at Eternal 82?
The win's been good. Obviously, we've got, Volk fighting this weekend, so we've got a few people away, and we've got 2 more boys fighting in 2 weeks. So it kind of didn't really stop to celebrate. It was more so straight back into training on Monday. Had 3 sessions on Monday, so it's straight back into training. I haven't really been able to completely celebrate because my partner's actually fighting in 2 weeks for his pro debut. So it's just keeping everything nice and calm and ready for him, and then he'll be able to hopefully finish this guy in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so there's absolutely no rest even for the winners. I mean, I think when I talked to you, teeing you up for the show, I think you said you even had like classes that you're teaching as well as helping people get sort of, settled in for their camps and everything. So we're straight back on the plane home from Perth back to New South Wales and straight back into it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what we do. It's just easier that way. If you take too much time off, then I feel like you start to get more like injured, and then, I don't know. I just like to jump straight back into it. That's just me.
That's fair enough. I mean, did you at least get a little bit of time while you're over there to kind of let your hair down a little bit, celebrate the win at least, and be able to sort of feel it before you jump back into it straight away?
We kind of just went to the pub, had some pizza, and then went home because we had an early flight back the next morning. So not too much celebrating, but hopefully after my partner and Colby win on the in 2 weeks, so we can have a big celebration over in Melbourne. No,
that'd be nice. Coming over to Melbourne, of course, down to my home state. Not quite as sunny down here in these sort of parts, but it'd be cool to sort of have you over. I mean, outside of that, what does a typical week look like for you? I mean, outside of training camps and that sort of thing. I mean, you teach your own classes. You're training obviously the guys at Freestyle MMA. Do you get any sort of time to yourself outside of that, or is it pretty much just train, repeat, fight, repeat, just straight into it?
It's pretty much just train, repeat. Like the couple of hours we have in between the day are napping time or just laying down for like an hour, which is nice sometimes. But before the morning, I do PTs from 5 a.m. in the morning before I even get to training. I teach classes before training as well, before our 9:30 class. So I'm quite busy and packed up until the 9:30 class, and then in the afternoon, by the time we finish at 7 and get home, it's like 8 o'clock. You're eating dinner. I've got to get back in bed at 9, and then back up the next morning. I get up at 4 o'clock, 4:30, depending on the class I have that day.
Well, I mean, the grind's all worth it because, it led to this performance at Eternal 82, a big time, very impressive performance against Courtney Martin, of course. Now, just curious in terms of the build up to this fight, was there any sort of difference in terms of your mentality sort of compared to your other pro fights? I mean, if we look down your career so far, you started your career with a bang, 2 wins, sort of back-to-back with 2 finishes there. The next 3 fights, split decision loss, split decision win, and then at a unanimous decision loss. Was there any sort of extra added pressure to, not only come into this fight to get the win, but to come in and maybe do it in the emphatic fashion that you ultimately did?
I think I put that pressure on myself, especially coming off a loss. I mean, the last girl I fought over in UAE Warriors, that girl was big and she was strong and she had world of experience. She was the #1 boxer in all of China, and she beat Valentina Shevchenko. You can't really. All you have to do is lead with that, you know what I mean? And I took that fight on a couple of weeks' notice. I took that fight knowing it was a risk, but I just like to fight, to be honest. And I like to not miss out on opportunities because at the end of the day, no risk, no reward. High risk, high reward, right? So I knew that going into there. But this meant, for this fight, I knew I kind of had to win. And I knew, obviously, Courtney's a great fighter. She's 0-2, so that, if I had lost to someone who was 0-2, that doesn't look great on me. But then again, when you look at the girls that Courtney's fought, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, that her fight against Lisa, she didn't lose. That was, if you look back on that fight, I did not see her losing that fight, and I don't think she lost that fight. So, and then obviously she fought that other girl in one. I can't remember what her name was, but it's not like she fought
Is that when she fought Sage Northcutt's sister? I think it was.
That's it.
Colby.
That one, yeah. So like, it's not like she's fought these like low level, like she ran straight in there, like fought with some big girls. So I definitely knew that coming into this fight. I knew she had a bit of a boxing background and stuff like that, but I definitely needed to come up with a win, and I wanted to be a bit more composed and calm. I feel like some of my other fights I tend to rush and I just want to get it over and done with. But I mean, sometimes when you can just take your time and pick your shots and pick them apart, and I kind of wanted to show that with this fight. And I've actually had a lot of people tell me that I look so calm and relaxed and just chill, which I did. I felt like that for this fight. So it was a really nice fight, really nice camp, and no, it was really good. I was really happy with it.
Well, let's talk about that fight itself. I mean, if you look at, I guess, the way the fight played out, I mean, the first round, obviously sort of the most competitive round in terms, both of you girls from the second and third round, you very sort of much led the dance in terms of, everything on the feet and being able to sort of, walk Courtney onto your punches and kind of do what you do with your footwork and everything. And that slick 1-2, which I want to get into in a little bit. But just in terms of that sort of difference from that first round onto the second and third, was there a bit of a difference in terms of like a change in a game plan, a change in sort of your mindset, or was it maybe just a case of you'd sort of settled into the fight, you'd sort of got the read on her, got her number, and you were just able to sort of find that flow, especially in that second and third round?
It was more so like, I think with most of my fights, the first round I have it's kind of like my feeling out round. Obviously you'd be love to finish someone in the first round, but I tend to be a bit slower in the first round, feel how strong they are and then clinch, how strong they are and like how strong they are up against the cage, how hard they hit, and then I kind of figure out what I'm doing round 2 and 3 from there. But I definitely felt like, obviously she had that collar tie on me, that neck tie on me with knees and stuff like that, but none of those shots hurt. So I kind of knew her power from there. And even when she did land a few punches, I kind of felt like, okay, I can stand and bang with this girl, and I'm not going to get hit as hard as that last girl that I fought. Like I was comfortable after the first round, and I knew what I needed to do, and I knew I could beat her on the feet. Even on the cage, when I had her up against the cage, I felt quite strong there. As you see, like I'm training with all these big, strong boys who are levels and levels and levels. There's just so many levels to them. So I knew once I was in there and I could kind of grab a hold of it, I was like, okay, I'm fine here as well. So wherever the fight kind of led to, I felt I was going to be pretty comfortable with it.
In terms of what you thought you were preparing for with Courtney, like, did she fight, pretty much exactly how you thought she'd fight? Because she sort of, spent a lot of time on the front foot, sort of hunting you down. Was that sort of what you expected from her?
I heard her in one of her interviews saying she kind of was happy to stand and bang, but I honestly didn't. I thought she was really going to try and shoot and try to get me down to the ground. Obviously she's a purple belt, I'm a purple belt too, but I just think that I really thought that she was going to try and like do a bit more of a cage wrestling and try to like get me down from the cage there, because I noticed she doesn't really shoot from the center cage. But yeah, I didn't expect her to just want to stand and bang with me, I love to do that, so I'm never going to say no to that. I love to just stand and bang. So yeah, I was happy and surprised at the same time.
I mean, just in terms of your performance, I mean, how happy were you with that? I mean, it was an incredible performance, but in terms like, I know fighters are pretty hard on themselves sometimes, even, with a very impressive performance. How would you sort of grade that outing against Courtney Martin from yourself?
I'm happy with it, but I'm not completely happy with it. I feel like I definitely could have finished her like in the second round after I dropped her if I had it rushed. I definitely felt like I could have, even when I slipped to land that head kick, like if I had just, there's these little things that I'll sit there and I'll pick apart, or, even when I was in the clinch with her, then I could have broken off quicker and done things differently. Like, I'm happy with it, but I'm not ecstatic with it. Like, I'm happy I won, and I'm happy, I caused damage and stuff like that. Obviously, that's what I want to do, but I definitely feel like I could have finished the fight much sooner and had a bit more of made it a bit more exciting and used a bit more weapons rather than just, these.
I mean, in terms of, from a fan perspective, I mean, it was a very exciting performance. I mean, you talk about, your footwork and, your very slick boxing in that 1-2 that I just mentioned. I mean, I was talking to your teammate, now featherweight champion, Justin Van Heerden, immediately after your fight. And I was saying like, oh man, how about that 1-2 from Amena? And he said, man, that 1-2 has bounced off my head more times than I can remember. Can we confirm on the podcast that is in fact accurate?
It definitely has. And I have a bit of a boxing background as well. So I like to stick to my basics and definitely throw that 1-2 down the pipe. But sometimes that's kind of led me into deep waters in terms of people shooting and getting me down there. But when I started to land there and I really felt it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is my money.
I mean, when you just mentioned there, you would have liked to have, shown off some more tools and making it, more exciting. And again, it was incredibly exciting, and those punches looked crisp. They looked hard. I'm surprised a couple of those didn't drop her. But I mean, what are you sort of referencing? Do you think there's sort of more tools that you have in your bag that you haven't sort of quite shown yet, that maybe you might sort of break out in the future? You've got a few things that you think that you holstered that we might sort of see in the future.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like I fight a little bit different. I don't fight how I spar in the gym. So I definitely a lot more exciting when I'm sparring in the gym and stuff like that. But obviously, coming off a loss, I wanted to be a little bit more cautious, I guess, with my approach. So I didn't want to go and try all the crazy things and all the things that I do at training. I kind of wanted to just keep it nice and basic and get a nice good win, if that makes sense. But definitely in the gym, I do a lot more crazy and different things, and I use all my tools and stuff like that. There are a lot more kicks. Like I'm very kick heavy when I'm in the gym, whereas when I go to fight, you might see me throw 1 or 2 kicks and then I end up falling. So I definitely feel like after coming off a win now, I'll be able to slowly show those tools a bit more.
I mean, if that's what your cautious approach is, I mean, sign me up for whatever comes next, for whatever extra tools that you might have sort of coming down the pipeline. I mean, look, it's funny you say that. This podcast would have actually dropped maybe half an hour ago, just to show that, we do in terms of breaking down the pod. And we're actually talking about you and, praising the performance. Myself and Daryl Martin, co-host, said would have loved, just to see a little bit more compliments of some kicks and some body shots and that sort of thing. But really speaking that in terms of the praise of everything you do so well, and just, I guess, being a little bit selfish, in terms of everything that we saw from you was sort of so good. And just, man, if we saw some of those extra tools, holy hell, what do we sort of have in our hands there? But like I said, incredible performance nonetheless. Got the job done in emphatic fashion. I mean, we just mentioned your teammates there before, Justin Van Heerden, singing your praises, bouncing the punches off his head in the training room and everything like that. So, speaking of those guys, I mean, you talked about, your team after the fight and everything too, but I mean, can you just, shed a bit more light in terms of, not what those guys sort of mean to you in terms of the fight preparation and that sort of thing, and the guys that you sort of go to war with, but I mean, just being able to turn up to a world-class gym like Freestyle MMA, home to Alexander Volkanovski, all those guys that you train with, Seb, Salai, Colby, Thickness. I mean, you've even had guys in there recently like Jack Della Maddalena. My hometown boy from Bendigo, Jimmy Crute's been up in the gym there recently.
Yeah.
I mean, what a meld of minds that is up at Freestyle MMA. Can you just, talk about everything that does there for that gym benefiting you?
Well, and like you just said, you've just named all these people, and that's the thing, obviously Volk's the best, and he's always going to be the best, and we're going to see that this weekend. But the levels that there is: Jarrett Wilbraham, Colby Thickness, Seb Saleh, Kasib Murdoch, Justin Van Heerden. There's so many high level guys there that know so much and are so knowledgeable and are so good at what they do. And I don't ever walk out of a session going, oh, I kind of wish I knew that answer, because they're always kind of there to help me answer that, or they will sit there and they'll break down techniques with me and stuff like that. And that's the thing, especially sometimes you go to training, oh, why didn't this work? It's because I'm training with these high level guys. That's why sometimes these things don't work with them, because we drill these same things, that they're so good at those things. So sometimes I kind of forget that. I was even talking to one of my teammates yesterday. I said, yeah, because you can't get out of that position because we train that position so much, and we're working with the highest of level of people. So, come time when we go and fight somebody who isn't working with those high level people, it'll show. But, the reason it's so hard to get that position or escape that position is because look at who we're training with. And then look at the caliber of people coming through the gym: Kay Jones, Frank Hickman, Jack Della, Jimmy Crute, Bloods was here, Izzy was here for a second. There's just so many people coming through. It's just so much knowledge and crazy, things, and that we can so many things that we can learn from these people. And it's just, that speaks for itself. Look at the level that we've got coming through the gym.
I mean, not to mention, Joe Lopez there at the top of the helm. I mean, what a well to be able to draw from. Just, incredible amount of minds, coming in and out of the gym. I mean, in a room full of incredibly hard workers, that gym, is there one person you could point to and say that's the hardest worker among a room full of hard workers? Is there one you could point to? You can say yourself if you want to. I'm curious.
I can't. No, honestly, everyone, especially when you get told you're in a fight, everyone pushes and they let all the gas out. It's insane. You can't explain it. You just have to see it. I don't know if you've seen the meat grinders and the spiders that we do, but you see people get pushed to their absolute limits.
I hear the rumors.
All right.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, no,
But I can't pick anyone. I can't just pick anyone.
No, that's fair. I mean, look, we see enough on social media, and I'm sure obviously we don't give everything away in terms of everything we're doing in the gym. But I mean, I guess like every gym's hardworking, right? But I mean, everything going on at Freestyle MMA is just, I imagine there's sort of no days off. And I've talked to enough of you guys from that gym to already sort of have a window into that. So it is definitely very cool to see. Just want to touch on one last thing in terms of, after the fight, not only sort of thanking yourself, thanking your teammates and, thanking your friends, your family, your mum and that sort of thing. But you took the time, to share some sentiments about some things that, were obviously close to your heart, close to your mind. And I mean, I guess in terms of, a time where you'd be forgiven for, taking the entire spotlight of yourself, you saw fit to, talk about something. Obviously there's things going on in the world that, sometimes it is, even in that moment, a little bit bigger than just us.
Oh, 100%. Obviously, I think you're referring to what's happening over in Gaza. When people have got these kinds of platforms, obviously I'm small in this massive world, but I think you should obviously take the opportunity and speak up for what's going on, because you've seen it. I put all over my story. Like, there's so much thing happening in the media and stuff like that, and they're so good at portraying one story and always forgetting about the other person. And it's been happening for years, especially like obviously with the Arab community and stuff like that, like what happened in Iraq and what's happening in Palestine. I think there's things happening in Congo now. Like, there's so many things that aren't being talked about and just being pushed to the side. And instead of talking about bloody Taylor Swift or the NFL, or it's just like, are you guys serious? Like, that's one person in this massive world. So whenever I get a platform like that, I think it's 100%. You should be speaking about it, because there's not enough being said and there's not enough being done. And it's people like us who just have to, like, we can only do so much. So whatever I can do, I'm going to do. And obviously I'm Lebanese, I think my great grandma was Palestinian. So like, obviously it's a little bit close to home, and, they started bombing Lebanon. That's where I'm from. Like, that's where my family's from. So it's just, if I've got that platform to speak about it, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. If I lose followers, I don't really care. At the end of the day, I don't really care what happens with that.
No, I mean, I think it sort of speaks volumes to, who you are as a person. So we got to sort of see two things. We got to see, live on UFC Fight Pass, your skill as a fighter. But we got to see, the humanistic side of you as well. So, it was a very cool thing to see. And again, in a moment where, you could definitely be selfish and take all the spotlight from yourself after a performance like that, and chose to sort of share it with a lot of other people that, do definitely need those sentiments. So absolutely hats off to you. But if I can, spend one last question being selfish for you for a minute, I mean, a great way to kick off your 2024 with a bang, an incredible win, like we said. What do you sort of envision for your 2024 going forward? Have you had any sort of thoughts about, what you'd like to sort of do this year? Curious as you think in terms of, do you think there's enough potential opponents that are, sort of at the level you're at to be able to get some fights in here in this country? What's in your mind in terms of how you would like this year to go for you?
Well, obviously Joe's away and stuff like that, so I have to have a chat to him. But I wanted to get at least 4 fights in this year.
4 fights, let's go.
Yes, I've had my one, so I've got 3 more. Hopefully, that's the goal, at least. And obviously I got a few offers before. After I had already said yes to this Courtney fight, some international offers. So I was just going to stick with Courtney and then see how he went there, back at UAE Warriors. But in terms of Australian opponents, there are only girls left that I haven't fought. Drop Bear, but she's going to pause in Canada somewhere. It's a promotion over there. And then Fane is the only other flyweight that I can think of. The rest I've fought all of them. So in terms of Australia, it's very, very, very niche. So we'll have to just kind of outsource and try and get some international opponents, or me flying over whether it be Abu Dhabi or whatever it is. But just see what the boss says when he gets back from America. Of
course. I mean, that's priority number 1 right now for Alexander Volkanovski and those guys over there. Coming in hot for that UFC pay-per-view coming up. Amena, whatever happens for you next, selfishly, hopefully we do get to see you back here on Eternal. We've had some international opponents come over recently to fight some guys here, guys at a career and all that sort of thing. We've had girls come from overseas. So, if that was something we could see here in this country, I'm sure everyone would very much look forward to it. And for fans watching, we, of course, do have Eternal 83 coming up in less than a month's time. There's not too many tickets left for that. I think last time we looked, there was less than 60. So make sure you get onto those and get there and see live in person John Martin Fraser versus Ben Johnston. But for Amena Hadaya, thank you very much for joining me on the show for the very first time. Pleasure to talk to you. Enjoy the win. I know there's not a lot of downtime between enjoying the wins. You're straight back into it. Seems the way you sort of like to do it. So all the best to you, and can't wait to see what comes next.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.